Okay, good morning everyone, and thank you for being here this morning for a very, very special announcement. We are right at the front of Rod Laver Arena, which over the course of Australian basketball has seen some memorable moments over the journey, and this morning we are here to make a very, very special announcement. Thank you for being here. As I mentioned, it is going to be a very hot day today, so we thought that we would try and do this early before the heat really got a hold of things. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Eastern Kulin Nation, of course, as the traditional owners of this land on which we stand today, and we pay our respects to elders both past and present. My name is Jack Heverin. I am a lifelong basketball fan, and I have the privilege of being involved with the NBL, and it is my privilege today to be here as your MC for a truly historic day in the course of Australian basketball. This morning, we can announce that the National Basketball Association and Australia's National Basketball League, in collaboration with Visit Victoria, are announcing that the New Orleans Pelicans will play 2 pre-season games against NBL teams in Melbourne this October. It's marking the first time ever that NBA games will be played here in Australia. The Pelicans will play Melbourne United on Friday, October the 3rd, and on Sunday, October the 5th of this year, with the taking on the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, with the NBL serving as the official promoter and organiser of these Melbourne games. In addition to these games, the NBA, the NBL and the Pelicans will conduct NBA Cares community outreach initiatives and lifestyle events leading up to and during the week of the games, including a very special fan night on Saturday, October the 4th. Please put your hands together, everyone in attendance this morning. This is truly remarkable, and we're so delighted to have you all here today. Didn't know the flames were coming, so there you go. To the media in attendance, thank you for being here this morning. Please hold your questions until the end. If you could, there will be a nice long opportunity for you to ask questions at the end of these formal speeches. But on such a huge day here in Victoria, I would like to welcome the Victorian Sports Minister, Mr. Steve Dimopoulos, up first to speak.
Thank you. So I'm going to acknowledge some people because it's important. We have a really excellent sports leadership community in this state and internationally. So firstly, Rajat Chowdhury, the Head of Strategy Asia Pacific for the NBA. David Griffin, Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations, New Orleans Pelicans. Swin Cash, Senior Vice President of Basketball Operations and Team Development, New Orleans Pelicans. And this is a team that I got to see their home facilities when I was in New Orleans. And it's a team owned by Mrs. Benson, who her and her now deceased husband spent a lot of money on that facilities and the team. But I want to acknowledge their contribution to the Pelicans, and the fact that they support it means the Pelicans come here as well. Back to Australian home soil, the incredible Larry Kesselman, the owner of the NBL, who has transformed the NBL. Thank you, Larry, for being here. Dave Stevenson, equally incredible CEO of the NBL. We have Nick Trilson, Melbourne United CEO. Anoop Singh, Southeast Melbourne Phoenix interim CEO. We have Jordan Hunter from Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. Visit Victoria, Brendan McClements here, and Kelly Dixon. Andy Penn, the Chair of Visit Victoria. Patrick Flanagan and John Harnden, who run this extraordinary facility on behalf of the Victorian community. And we also have, and I'm sure you'll be very pleased to ask him some questions about what this means, Andrew Gaze, Leonard Copeland and David Anderson, absolute champions of the game, legends of the game. So to all of them, I want to thank you for being here. I also want to thank and acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet, and pay my respects to the elders past and present. So this is a really exciting announcement. I know it's probably the worst kept secret in Melbourne, but this is a great announcement. The NBA is coming to Melbourne and Victoria. The New Orleans Pelicans, as you just heard, playing against Melbourne United and Southeast Melbourne Phoenix on the 3rd and the 5th, Friday and Sunday in October. This is a slam dunk for Victoria. It's just extraordinary. It's historic. It's the first time, as you heard, the NBA will be playing on Australian soil. The first time. This follows the NHL playing in 2023 here, the first time in Melbourne, and the NFL playing next year. If you look at those three big sports, three of the big four in the US, Melbourne has them first. Melbourne and Victoria has them first. And in fact, having them at all puts us in a very elite company. We are one of only 3 cities now, globally, outside the US, that can lay claim to having hosted those 3 US sports: London, Toronto, and Melbourne. That's the company we keep, and it's very, very exciting. Not only is this a win for basketball fans in Victoria and Australia, in Victoria there's 700,000 people play basketball and are fans of basketball, but this is also a win for tourism. It's extraordinary. If I could just give you a sense of it, the NBA has cumulatively 1 billion followers on social media across a range of different platforms. 1 billion followers. The opportunity to have that soft power shine a light on this beautiful city and state, which is one of the global sports capitals, but this beautiful city and state, with the NBA coming here, the Pelicans coming here, it's extraordinarily impactful for our tourism industry, for our hotels, our restaurants, the bars. You've heard me talk about it before. Job creation right through the economy because of events like this. And there'll be heaps of things to do for families and also free events. In conclusion, I want to just thank, you can't do these things without excellent relationships and excellent partners. And Visit Victoria, as a Victorian government agency, does extraordinary work. Brendan, his team, Andy and the entire team do extraordinary work. I want to thank the NBA, for trusting us with this very, very special asset, effectively, having an NBA team come to Melbourne to play. It's a very precious asset. Many cities and states around the world would want that. I want to thank the NBA for their trust. I want to thank the NBL. You can't do what we're about to do in October without having a successful Australian league. And Larry Kesselman and his family and Dave have been absolutely transformational in creating a legacy for all Australians and Victorians through the NBL. So, I look forward to welcoming a bit of the New Orleans vibe to Melbourne and Victoria in October this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister. As you can imagine, for an announcement of this magnitude and an event of this magnitude, it has been years and years in the making. I'm sure there's not many people prouder here this morning than the NBL's owner and executive chairman, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Larry Kesselman.
Thank you. Pride is definitely the word that first comes to mind. I think for our league, the National Basketball League, in a country like Australia, which is obviously not the largest country in the world, to be able to attract the biggest game around the world in basketball to our shores is just incredible. The juggernaut that NBA is, to show the trust that it has in the NBL and partner with us, just shows how far we've come. It is pride. It is a special moment for all the fans of basketball that love the game, that play the game. To be able to actually see it on our shores is an extraordinary moment. And I want to thank a couple of people. Look, this has been a journey, and it was mentioned that it's not an overnight success. It's actually been 15 years in the making. I remember the conversation starting 15 years ago. So it's taken us a long time to get the trust, to get the respect of the biggest organisation in basketball in the world, in the NBA. And hence I want to thank, first of all, Raja, who's here. He's put in a lot of work to help us navigate to make this event happen. But this would not happen without the confidence and support of Adam Silver, Mark Tatum, Michael Ma, who heads up the Asian-Australian relationship. So those are absolutely critical partners that are now truly partners with us by bringing this event here. These things don't happen without support of the government. The vision of Visit Victoria, Jacinta, Steve, everyone involved in government, I know they believe in sport and how important it is for all of us. It's in our fibre, it's in our DNA, it's something that we absolutely love, and to be able to have their support to actually bring this partnership to life is incredibly special. So I thank you for your trust and your commitment to sport in general, and of course to the NBL. To all of my team, Dave Stevenson, Nicola, Vince, everyone that's been involved in working with myself to bring this event to life, the amount of work that's gone into it is incredible. I do believe this is the first, but not the last. I think we know that we're going to put on a wonderful event for Melbourne, for Australia. We hope lots and lots of people come and visit and experience the event from all around Australia. Melbourne is a great city to come and visit. Obviously, we'll have the AFL final followed by this event, so it'll be an incredible time to be in Melbourne. So for me personally, the journey for myself, for my family, with the NBL and the growth of NBL has been incredible. We've been involved in the game for nearly 20 years, 10 years now of running the league and growing the league, and this moment is just so special. I think what it shows is where our league is at right now, but even more importantly, where it's going. The growth, the sold-out crowds, the passion that we see from our fans, and the fan growth is incredible. We're right in the middle. We're right in the middle of our finals. The season has broken all records. So this event in itself is extraordinary, but it's even more extraordinary for the fact that what basketball is doing here in Australia. So I again thank everyone. I want this to be a moment of pride for not just Australia in general, for Melbourne, but for everyone that loves basketball, to be able to see NBA on our shores here in Melbourne playing against Melbourne United and South East Melbourne is going to be a celebration of everything that basketball is in this country. So thank you all again, and couldn't be more excited and more proud. Thank you. And as a finishing comment, I want to say we reminisced with Dave Griffin from New Orleans, and we met maybe, I'm going to say 10, 12 years ago in very different roles and very different circumstances, and we could only dream. So NBL's slogan is dream big, and we did, and here we are, Dave. So thank you very much for making this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And it is very hot here this morning, so big thanks to the Nunawading Basketball Association for being here this morning. Now to the NBA. It is an absolute honour for all of us to welcome the NBA's Asia Head of Strategy, Mr. Raja Chowdhury, to the microphone.
Good morning, everyone. It is hot, so I'll try and keep this short. It's a real honour to be here today to celebrate this significant milestone in the continued global growth of basketball and the NBA. As most of you know, Australia has punched well above its weight in terms of basketball talent, and Melbourne in particular has produced many NBA players over the years. Australia is a vital part of the basketball community across the world and home to some of the most passionate fans, both in basketball and across all sport. And that's why we're really excited in announcing these games to happen, the first time ever NBA games in Melbourne this October, featuring the Pelicans, Melbourne United and the South East Melbourne Phoenix. The popularity of basketball in Australia and the NBA in Australia is at an all-time high, and we're super excited to service our fans here who continue to grow the game. I'd really like to thank Larry and his team at the NBL, who've been wonderful partners over the course of history. We've been partners for many years, and this new chapter takes that partnership to a new level. I also want to thank Mrs. Benson, David, and the Pelicans organisation for being proactive in chasing down this opportunity to play in Australia, and for their commitment to serve the fans and the local community in Australia. Also want to thank Visit Victoria and the Minister for their vision and their support and their shared vision of ours in having basketball to really service the basketball fans in the community. Lastly, I want to thank the fans. We wouldn't be here without the fans, and it's wonderful to be able to bring this event to you, and we look forward to delivering an unforgettable experience in October. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raj. Now, none of this, of course, would be possible without the New Orleans Pelicans, and we are so excited later on this year to have them back here in Melbourne. So we'll now hear from the Pelicans Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations, Mr. David Griffin.
Thank you very much. Truly honored to be here today to get to speak on behalf of Mrs. Gail Benson, our owner and governor, Dennis Lauscher, our CEO, and their teams. This is a monumental moment for us as an organization. The New Orleans Pelicans take great pride in being the first NBA team to come to Melbourne. We will, as Larry mentioned, absolutely not be the last. This is a very rich sporting culture And New Orleans is a very rich and diverse and beautiful culture as well. I think the blending of those two things will be a perfect match. We couldn't be more excited for this opportunity. I think one of the most important things for me about all of this is that starting in 1996, sort of my international exposure to basketball was at the Atlanta Olympics. And I got to see Andrew Gaze and Shane Heel firsthand. They put on an incredible show. I also got to see Michelle Timms, Michelle Brogan-Griffith, Rachel Sporn win a bronze medal for Australia. And what Timsy represented, that spirit of never say die, that unflinching courage and that belief that victory is always around the corner was something that I really held on to as a young person in the NBA. And later, as I continued my career, having exposure to Luke Longley as a player that was important to us. Matthew Dellavedova in Cleveland was one. Honestly, I saw him yesterday at practice with the United. Delly is as responsible for this as any player could be, because what I watched him do in our finals versus Golden State, when he had to be hospitalized to take him off of Steph Curry, was one of the most powerful things I've ever seen in sport. And his grit and his determination was something that fueled us as a team, and it's fueled me ever since in my career. So I'd like to thank Matthew in large measure for this as well. What he represented to us is what I would like our teams to represent. It's what I would like the New Orleans Pelicans to represent in many ways. The selflessness and the team-first attitude that both these teams in the NBL finals represent are really important to us, and we're trying to be tied to those roots. The NBL is an absolutely amazing product. Larry is being generous with the timeline that he gave us, 12 years. We're older than that. I think it was probably 17 years ago that this dream sort of was hatched. But in terms of it being the Pelicans, Chris Orr from Pacific Sports Management was very instrumental. He brought a deal to us in New Orleans with Tripadeal, one of our partners, and Qantas, a great partner of theirs, that really sort of hatched this 3 years ago that we would be able to do this in a way that made sense. So I'm super grateful to the NBA and Raj, Adam Silver, and Mark Tatum for helping to bring this to life, to really giving us the opportunity to land the plane on something that we believe is going to be truly special. To the Visit Victoria partners that we have, we're very, very grateful for all you're doing to bring this together. And as I said, this isn't a threat, but I think you're going to see more of us. And I truly look forward to being the first to open this up. The one thing that we will do that will be unprecedented, I believe, is we're going to do a good portion, maybe not all of, but we're going to try to be here prior to the games for a good portion of our training camp. Our full roster will be attendance. These games will be really meaningful to us with everybody on our roster, and I know the NBL is going to stock those two teams as well as they can to create a very competitive environment. So thank you very much, and again, on behalf of Mrs. Benson, we're truly honored to be the first here today.
I just add to that, I think the plan is also... Come right to the mic. I think the plan is to make sure that the team is here well before the games. As David mentioned, for their preseason, for their warm-up, but I know there's a lot of excitement from the players and families that are going to be here. I think you can imagine it's not going to be a small contingent to actually visit and have a look around Victoria, enjoy all the different sites. For a lot of them, it'll be their first visit to Australia, so these images will be beamed all around the world and show Melbourne in the beautiful light that it is. So it's definitely going to be a combination of pre-season, but a little bit of exposure for Victoria, showcase everything that Victoria and Melbourne has to offer, and for the players and especially their families to really get exposed to Australia and its beauty, and that'll be beamed, as mentioned by Steve, to a billion people around the world through all of their platforms.
While Larry's at the microphone, are there any other questions that the media may have for Larry?
Yes, if we have it our way, it will become an annual event. I really believe in the following of basketball in Australia and the fandom. For example, the League Pass in Australia, I think, is the second most popular outside of the NBA. So The fandom for NBA, for basketball, for NBL is absolutely here. I believe we deserve games on our shores, so it's on us to prove what a wonderful event we're going to put on. The team, how well it'll be looked after and what a success it is, and post that, I certainly hope this will become an annual event where we've travelled, I think we've played something like 20 to 30 games, travelling our teams over to the NBA, and that will still hopefully continue to some extent, but I really believe we deserve one game a year that is on our shores, and that's something that this is a test case for, and we'll analyse the success of it post that, but that's the absolute hope.
Who have you got your eye on to recruit next?
Look, I think following Australians, and I know when this conversation started, there might have been a very, very great Australian player playing on the New Orleans Pelicans when we started the conversation. So certainly the hope is to follow Australians. That's the number one hope. How can we bring great players that are representing us so well in the NBA? So sort of follow those guidelines. That'll probably always be our first choice. But yeah, a couple of others like the Chicago Bulls is a pretty good combination of both. So no doubt we'll be having a chat to them. But I think any big names would be on the radar. I think a game between two NBA teams is something I think quite challenging. They only have a few of those that they can do by their bargaining agreement with the players. So I think that will be a challenge. Those things are usually locked away a few years ahead, but I would never count that out. If we can prove the success of these games, I think even a combination of, I love the idea of NBL players, the exposure that they get against the best in the world. You're talking about the Zion Williams of the world. This is not just the best, this is best by far. So to have that exposure for our players is also very, very special. So if we do have NBA teams coming here and playing against each other, I think that's a possibility and it's a work in progress. But even then, I still hope that'll include NBL teams playing against those NBA teams on our soil.
Do you have a dollar figure how much this costs this project?
I'll tell you.
No, what I will say is that it's a fraction of what other countries around the world have paid to even have a chance of hosting NBA games. This has happened not because of the dollars, this has happened because of NBA and NBL partnership and mutual respect and the growth of the game. So when you think about areas like London, Abu Dhabi, it's a fraction of what NBA could have earned by going elsewhere. So this is done because of the fans, because of the fact that Australia deserves to have NBA on its shores. Yes, no, there's definitely conversations. I think there's a very close relationship there as well, and we're definitely going to have conversations how we look either at a similar or a different format, but we'd love to welcome WNBA to our shores as well. Great.
No further questions for Larry?
I'd like to welcome Raj back to the stage, please, from an NBA perspective. Are there any NBA-related questions for Raj?
I think Larry answered them all. As Larry said, we'll always look at various teams. It would really be up to teams to want to come to Australia. The Pelicans have been very forthcoming in their interest, and so that would be up to those conversations. Hard to sort of name teams at this point. As Larry said, we'd like to do it again, but right now we're just focused on getting this event up and running and making this the best event possible. I probably wouldn't get into the details, but yes.
What would you like to see this event been a success? How would you consider this event a sellout crowd or something else?
I have no doubt we'll have a sellout crowd, so I don't think that's really in question. I think what we'd like to see is how many more fans other than in the stadium can touch and feel our product. One of the reasons we're doing this is so that we can bring more NBA events into the market. We know that there's many fans in Australia across the country, and so obviously the games themselves will be limited in terms of capacity, but the fan zones, the fan night, the other events and activations we're going to do around the games is in the hope that all those things are well attended as well, and everyone gets their opportunity to touch and feel our product, which sometimes feels far away, and so it's wonderful to be able to bring it closer to our Australian fans.
And of course we have royalty from the NBA in town in Mr. Dave Griffin. So Dave, if you could please just join us for a moment. Any questions for Mr. Griffin, please?
Say that again. Yeah, so as I said, we'll have our full roster here. Zion Williamson, Trey Murphy, C.J. McCollum. We've got a very deep roster, and we'll have the full roster here. One of the exciting things about this for us is I'm joined by Swin Cash, and one of the things that we'll be able to do because of Swin, our Senior Vice President of Basketball Operations, and her team, we'll be able to activate the players around the sport with youth as well. The girls players that were here are something that we care a great deal about. Mrs. Benson cares a great deal about youth basketball, and in particular female participation. So that'll be something that we're really keen to do with our players. We want to activate in the community beyond just the games. So it will be the full breadth of our roster. Two NBA teams? Yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but I think it's really going to depend upon how we deliver on the promise of this opportunity. I think there's a lot at stake for our organization as well. I heard the earlier question, what would mark success? I think the sellout crowd's part of it, but I'd really like to see for generations youth wearing Pelicans jerseys. That's what this is going to be. We want to take a foothold here. So I can't say that it'll be an ongoing thing, but I'd also like to say that there'll be competition for NBA teams to get here eventually, I believe, if we do this right. And as an organization, we feel a pretty heavy burden to do that right.
David, forgive me for asking, but everyone wants to know, why did you trade Dyson and, but seriously, on Australian players, is there anyone else within the world of basketball from Australia that you're looking at?
Well, I think to the Dyson question, it was the right thing to do at the right time for us at that moment. It had absolutely nothing to do with our belief in Dyson. We've remained in close contact with him since, have a very good relationship with Ricky and Brakita. Swin in particular is close to the family and remains close to the family. You may or may not know he's got a younger brother who's a special player as well. So in terms of particular players, I wouldn't get into that. I can tell you that the way this league is run, the competitiveness of the league, the competitiveness of the boomers on the international stage, Australian basketball players are coveted by basketball leagues all over the world, and we're no different. I've just had more specific experience with champions from Australia, and so that will always be a big part of what we care about as an organization.
What made you comfortable flying your team out all the way to Australia from the physical player well-being perspective?
Well, one, I think the way that Larry and his team take care of their players, the level at which Melbourne and Visit Victoria is willing to take care of our players had a big part in it. Swin and her team have a big part in it because we will embrace not only the players but the families on this trip. So I think that's a huge part of this, is to give a cultural experience to everyone. And honestly, it'd be disingenuous not to mention Australia's number 2 in the world outside the United States in league pass uptake. We want to be part of that. We want to be the team that people here watch. And so I think it was a golden opportunity for us as an organization, and fortunately our ownership and her team recognized that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our formal side of the questions this morning. Thanks everyone for being here. This is, as I mentioned, a truly historic and special day in Australian basketball. We're so excited for later on this year. There'll be tickets and all sorts of information available very, very soon. So keep your eyes open for that. And for those in the media who are in attendance as well, the Minister will be just over in the shade over there. We'll try and look after you a little bit for questions of the day. But thanks so much for being here. It's an amazing morning. We appreciate your company. Thank you.